Welcome back to Typically Unique. I'm Kim Aponte, and I'm here with my husband, Carlos. Okay.
Hello.
Breaking news.
Hello.
I do not want to be here.
Ah.
Welcome in. Welcome in.
Wow. If hopefully people will join. I know a bunch of people are going live right now, probably to discuss this. And some people are probably playing the news and all that, and maybe having discussion about what's being said. We just saw the headlines, a little bit of the news, and I was like, hey, let's talk about it.
I stumbled upon this because I've been bouncing. There was a hearing today in Pennsylvania. So if you don't know, breaking news, I'll let you say it because Carlos called this months ago.
But the breaking news is supposedly, I don't know if it's official yet,
right?
But supposedly Bryan Kohberger's taking a plea deal so that the death penalty will be off the table.
Yes.
So we don't know what that entails, because Kim and I started having some conversation. I was like, well, let's stop this private conversation and let's have this conversation online, live. Hopefully some of you will come and join us. But either way, I wanted to capture our original true reaction to news that is breaking. We don't have all the details, and maybe in a couple days or by this weekend, we'll have all the information and we can put together a nice little clean podcast and do all the editing and talk about the specifics. But I wanted to capture some real talk, right?
I was dumbfounded.
Yeah.
Dumbfounded.
Yeah.
So I was, like I said, I was online because there was a hearing in Pennsylvania today for witnesses. The witnesses from Pennsylvania didn't want to come to Idaho to testify.
Physically,
like 6 of them, like they had to go in front of a judge and get ordered to go testify. So that was today. So I've been online, like checking in, and then I just happened to go into a live and they were showing a news broadcast, and it literally took like a second to register, like, wait, what? Because I came in the middle of it and I was like, what am I hearing right now? Am I hearing this the right way? And yeah, I guess News Nation was talking about it, and I don't have all the scoop. Like, oh, I know what I heard. The family, Kaylee Gonsalves's family, I think made a post about it, and I don't think they're happy. Like, I don't think this is good enough for them. I think they want him to go through the trial and really suffer.
I'd love for us to talk about that. Yeah, let's talk about all those details that go with the news that Bryan Kohberger today is supposedly pleading guilty and taking a plea deal.
I can't believe it.
And so when I say the true raw emotions or the reactions to this, so me and my daughter were in the kitchen, excuse me, eating dinner. We were just finishing up. We were kind of wrapping up. I hear the door open, right? From outside.
Burst in the room.
She burst in holding her phone and like, Bryan Kohberger's taking a plea deal. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally how I found out. Kim running through the door with her phone in hand, like, and you could tell it still wasn't registering with you.
I know.
Like, and you're even saying, like, is this real? Is it not real? But people are talking about it. So it may change an hour from now or, a day from now. But just the look on her face, I was like, wow, let's talk about this online. Just how this feels. And then maybe we can bring in all the, extracurricular or ancillary stuff that surrounds this case and bring that in, and how it affects the family, how it affects Bryan, how does it affect the defense attorney? Why did the prosecution even do that? Like, let's speculate before we get too much information, because that's what happened with this case in the beginning.
Absolutely.
And this is what really made this case take off, I think, in the public eye, is that so many people had the opportunity, because not all the information was available, had a chance, an opportunity to speculate. So let's take that opportunity now to speculate as much as we want before we hear the details of everything that's going to happen.
Well, you said the reason for why he would do this. You thought he would
Yes.
do this. And what did you say your reason was?
He doesn't want the death penalty.
Yeah.
And he's a chicken. and I was like, you know, there's things that I've seen and heard in the true crime, you know, world and, you know, around that, you know, I've listened to. And I was telling Kim very early on that even though this person maybe had the gumption to do this, to commit this crime, he does not have the gumption to lose his life over it. Isn't that crazy? Like, if you're this bad of a person and this is what you would do to somebody, don't you think you would loathe yourself so much that you're like, you know what? I deserve the death penalty. You know, not that I'm a big believer in the death penalty or, you know, an eye for an eye and all that stuff. And we could talk about that some other time. But
yeah, well, I think it's going to fit in here.
yeah, but this person to be so afraid of losing his life, and he took a life. He took 4 lives, but he's concerned about his life. I would rather spend 23 hours a day in a cell than have someone unalive me.
It's so hard for me to even, like, if he's pleading guilty, I'm sorry I keep looking down, but I'm having a hard time getting into our own live. So I had to switch accounts and I'm looking at my phone trying to monitor the chat over here. So
sure.
If he's pleading guilty, like, to get the death penalty off the table, he has to say, I did this.
Yeah.
So a lot of people do that, even when they aren't the one who did it, but we're all over here, people that I agree with, that I didn't think he was the one that did it, thinking they didn't have good evidence. Like, they didn't have good evidence. So, and if they did, why didn't they show us? So now it's like, wow, what did they have? Like, that was a lot of the comments that I saw in the chat when we were in there, like, wow, they must really have something. I don't know. Oh my God. I don't know. I did tell you, I felt like his defense attorney, Ann Taylor, was acting differently.
You did say that. Yes.
And like someone said, oh, her mom just died. Like, and I didn't know. I told you, I didn't know if it was because of that, like personal reasons, or just because it's been a losing battle every step of the way. Like, did that beat her down, or did something come about and now she's like, okay, I'm just trying to save his life?
Well, that's the vibe you gave me when you said she was acting differently. Like, hey, I am bound to defend him, but I don't believe in him as much anymore. Like, you had kind of said that to me, along with 5 other things, you know.
That was one of the things. Yeah.
But you even speculated, like, you know, wow, is she really behind this case as much as she seemed to vigorously defend him early on and maybe not as much anymore? You know, so that it did pique your interest that, you know, there was a shapeshift in her defense of Bryan Kohberger.
And you know what was interesting is that everything that she's been focused on lately has been post-conviction, that mitigation stuff. Like, that's all she's been talking about.
And what did I keep telling you about that stuff?
Yeah.
That they want certain things in, you know, certain things to be known about him. So even if he was found guilty in the sentencing phase, that the jury would not put him to death because maybe he had an extreme case of autism or an extreme case of something else, or he was beaten as a child, or, you know, he was abused or whatever. She was really focusing on all that stuff. And I was like, I said, honey, none of that stuff has anything to do with the case. They're focused on the back end of this.
Do you think that will still play? Because if, you know, killer, do we just say, you know, throw to the wolves, or do we say killer had autism and issues, that does that come, and that's what that process is for.
So let me answer that if I
Yeah.
could. Write down if you want to add something to that a little bit later.
I'm
Okay.
good.
I think I've heard in the court of law that if you can tell the difference between right and wrong and you understand the
We've heard
difference,
that before.
we've heard it more than once, right? But I'm framing it as we've heard it in a court of law that if you can understand the difference, then you have the mental capacity. And the ability to stop yourself, make decisions of doing right instead of wrong.
Yeah.
Even if that feeling is so powerful in your body because you may have a disability that makes it worse for you, that, you know, it's like spiders crawling on me, that I feel this way and I feel like I have to go do this, that you stop yourself because you understand right from wrong.
Yeah. Reach out for help, or, you know,
there you go.
Whatever.
There you go.
Yeah. Carly, what do you mean he took too many? Took too many.
He took too many lives.
Maybe. All right. So that was in the chat. So I'll wait for her to see if she's still listening or not.
Yep. Oh, and speaking of chat, because we're on live, are there two different chats?
Oh, yeah. If you're watching, make sure you got to scroll on over. Like
Swipe right.
You don't want to be on comments. You want to be in the live chat. So if you look at comments, there will be 2 dots. And a lot of times you swipe left. Push it left.
Push it left. Okay.
To join us in the live chat. Because a lot of times we'll get done with our lives and I'll see a bunch of comments for people that were here, they were watching, but I never saw their comments because
they weren't in the live chat.
Yeah, they didn't join us in the live chat.
There we go. Okay. We said we were going to mention that at the beginning of these, and I'm glad Carly was in there so we could do that. Interesting.
Oh, she said yes. So too many lives. Yeah.
Yep. Of course. That's what I think.
I still can't. How did he do it in 7 minutes? It was like down to like 7 minutes. Why? What was the connect? Like so many questions. Where, which one? Like, was it? It seemed like it was Maddie. Like, did he just see her online? Did he, like, all those? I mean, there's been so many speculations on the guilty and so now we're only going to look at the guilty. Like, what were the guilty people speculating all this time? He was, you know, someone who saw one of the girls and hyper focused on them and got shunned in some way.
You probably don't even need to get shunned. There is an urge for some type of action. There could be an urge that I know that this girl is out of my league. I can't stand the fact that I don't have the ability to even approach her in a way to be rejected. So I'm going to assume rejection.
True.
And then everything is going to filter from that. And I'm not saying this in a way that this is the Bryan Kohberger case. I have just heard of and personally experienced some things that I understand fixation. I understand where people can get fixated on something.
We've seen that. Yeah, we've dealt with that in our lives.
Yeah, and sometimes it leads to nothing. But sometimes there's a unfortunate few that take it a step too far.
Mm-hmm.
And this could be a person taking it a step too far.
Something happened. So Lori just joined us and she was texting me freaking out like, what? So just to recap a little bit, can we do that?
For sure.
So I was online, Lori, and just, you know, bouncing around from different creators, and someone was showing a news report that Bryan Kohberger was offered a plea deal and he was accepting in order to take the death penalty off the table and no appeals for him. So they said that's called a toe tag. Like, you're not leaving prison till you're dead.
You're dead. Yep.
Yeah.
but he
it's
wants to die
crazy.
naturally. He wants to die naturally, right?
Obviously.
It doesn't
Want to get shot by a firing squad.
Exactly, or lethal injection or whatever's legal up there in Idaho. But yeah, he wants to die of natural causes and chooses, instead of rolling the dice for his innocence, which there's a big community that believes he had nothing to do with this.
I still think, and I still think there's too many questions. Like, I don't know why the defense didn't, especially Cy Ray. I told you if Cy Ray dropped out, I would be like,
you drop out
guilty.
too.
I'd drop out and be like, he's guilty.
Right.
And I didn't hear he dropped out. So I'll be curious if maybe, like, did some new evidence get brought out? Was Cy Ray still involved? Like, all these questions that would have made me change my mind. But it could also be nothing has changed. He's just facing all this media. Like, the media has slaughtered him. In fact, this was interesting from today. The people in Pennsylvania, do you know why they didn't want to go testify? The number one reason they all get, because one of the creators, Miss Potts, went to the hearing today, and they all said, in fact, they made somebody leave the court. They made mainstream media. No, they didn't make them leave. They're afraid that mainstream media was going to say that they were helping a murderer. So if I testify and I say something on Bryan's behalf, the mainstream media is going to like roast me, rake me over the coals and say I'm helping a murderer. And so they brought that up. And so the judge had the attorneys do like a sidebar so that the mainstream media was in the courthouse today and they couldn't hear what they were saying. Like, it's crazy. So part of it is maybe he didn't think he was going to get a fair trial. And would you be rather like, you're like, I'm going to be found guilty of this and I didn't do it and they're going to shoot me? What would you
20
do?
years from now.
What would you do?
20 years from now.
20 years, or would you rather you'd live? He's 20 some years old. Would you rather live 50 or 60 more years?
Yeah. So what would I do if
you didn't do it?
I didn't do it.
Didn't do it.
I would scream. I would do the Kimberly approach. I would be screaming from the rooftops, breaking every single order and regulation that the courts had put in place, to scream from the rooftops, I didn't do this. Find somebody else. Here's exactly what I know. I'm going to tell the world, and I don't care if I get contempt of court for 5 months. I will not be considered guilty in public opinion, because I am going to be the guy who everybody sees that, man, he's not guilty, because I ain't ever seen anybody scream from the rooftops instead of just sit there meek and meagerly and be like, they ain't gonna find me guilty.
Right. Karen
you said
Reed,
you never would do that.
Yeah, Karen Reed kind of did that.
Karen Reed did that.
Spoke to the media and all that stuff.
Amen. I'd break every rule there is.
Lori
for contempt of court.
Lori had a good point. She said that's also, it's kind of not fair to the kids for him to have a choice. For him to have a choice like that. Oh, I'll just take the plea deal and just live my life. And Lori, I think that's what Kaylee Gonsalves's family. That's the other thing. I guess this broke because they put out a post, and that's kind of been the way this whole case has been. Steve Gonsalves has pretty much been putting everything out there. So a lot of people were bashing him, but maybe now we need to backtrack and say, hey, dude was. Yeah.
Ain't no we here.
Dude was at least trying to communicate, right? Like say what was out
there.
So
he was the guy, just like we said an innocent person would be. He's the guy on the opposite end of that, standing on the rooftop.
Yes.
Breaking every single contempt of court violation there in every order to say, I am going to protect the memory of my daughter.
Yeah. I want justice
for my daughter. I want justice for my daughter. Yeah. I don't care what order you put in place. This is what I'm going to do because I believe in his what? Say with me, guilt.
Guilt.
His guilt. His guilt, because he's seen way more than we've seen. And one more point I want to make too. I think the final straw, the nail in the coffin, was the DoorDash driver.
Why?
Because there's always been these 4 or 5 little things and one big thing that connected Bryan to the murder. Right?
Oh, so you think she was gonna be able to say, "I saw him. Here's what I saw."
She literally said
I was sitting
on
there.
the tape, "I'm going to court to identify Bryan Kohberger."
Yeah, she did. But they've known that all along.
They've
known, but because. So you think that hitting mainstream? Oh, because it would have turned the public opinion even more.
Yeah, because look at how many. I mean, even through all this, look at how many people stayed on the Karen Reed side of things, right? For Bryan Kohberger. They literally
say that again. I don't know what you mean.
How many people, even with all the stuff that was coming out
about Karen Reed,
about Bryan Kohberger,
yes,
all the stuff that was coming out, they were still treating it like the Karen Reed trial. She's innocent. He's innocent. This piece of evidence, I can debunk it, and I'm going to do a 2-hour live to debunk it.
Right.
Or, hey, I got these court documents and I'm going to interpret it this way to debunk it, or I'm going to do some research on some druggies in Utah and New Mexico and Arizona, and I'm going to debunk it, right? People were still, I think, where it almost got to the point of now we have a physical eyewitness to say, I saw this and it came out accidentally. That happened a year ago. Why didn't it come out then? Now it comes out and, oh, wait a minute. She's a drug user. She can't see properly. She's a meth head. She's, everybody's trying to debunk her. And it just started running thin.
I wasn't trying to bash just her personally. I just, I was always on the drug connection route as a motive. And trust me, there's evidence. It's not just speculation like, oh, she looks like that. It's not like that. She definitely has had some issues and connections in that world. So that's what I thought. I also thought she looked nervous. So I don't know. But I will tell you, there's going to be a lot of people that thought Bryan Kohberger was innocent that aren't going to back down. Like,
oh no. They'll they'll support regardless. I mean,
right.
And okay, it's your opinion, fine. If he comes out and says some things, that maybe might change some people's mind, that they feel like, okay, he's saying this is what I did and it doesn't look coerced, then maybe they will say, all right, you played us, we were on your side, we're willing to back you, but you saw you were painted in a corner and, we were hopeful for you, but he did what he had to do. But I want to go back to the DoorDash driver just for a minute. So this point always gets me. So the DoorDash driver had the wherewithal to pick up the correct order at Jack in the Box, right? Pick up the correct bag, check it and say, okay, see the address on it, right? Take the bag out, go into her car, drive a distance to the location, walk it up to the house, hand it off, go back to the vehicle, and go home. And all that's possible for this maniac drug user, but to look over and to see Bryan Kohberger is inconceivable. That could have happened.
No, if that's what happened.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people, and I'm telling you, there's lots of body cam footage out there that people have gotten. She's been pulled over several times.
I'm going to stop you. I have to stop you there because I want to make sure we're on my point, and then I want to go to your point. Can I?
Sure.
This is my point, and I want acknowledgement on my point.
Yes.
My point is that night, all the things that I just said, and I won't repeat them. She was coherent enough to do all those things. Pick up the food, drop off the food,
Yes. What do you
drive,
want me to say about that?
and identify
Yes.
Bryan Kohberger. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. But you immediately went into,
Well, I thought we were having a discussion, so I
no.
was just going to say the other side, the
Oh,
other point. Like that's, yeah.
so if she's a maniac drug user, which that's what I ended with, she's a maniac drug user. She wasn't in a manic state that night because she was able to do all those little tasks and identify somebody. So I don't care if you are a raging thief and every place you go, you're a kleptomaniac. Is that what it's called? You're a kleptomaniac?
Yeah.
But if you're sitting here right now and everything's here, I'm not going to be like, hey, what did you steal? I mean, it's, if she's a drug user and not in that horrific maniac state that everybody keeps saying that she was in, she was able to do this at the time.
Mhm.
Make that identification. That's the point I'm trying to make.
We heard your point
Okay.
like 5 times now. Like
Good.
we get it.
2, maybe 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a little upset over that. So who's joined us? Max Smith. I think it's true. It confirms Bryan is a Fed role playing. 0 evidence a crime took place. So I told you there's still people out there that think that. And I don't know. Am I allowed to speak now about the other side?
Of course.
Because she got pulled over so many times. Every time she got pulled over, she said, I'm door dashing. I'm dashing. So it's known, I guess, that that's a cover for drug runners, right? So do you want to get people watch in their neighborhoods, right? Like, why is this car always pulling in here? Why is it? We DoorDash. And how many times, especially when you were working from home,
we received DoorDash.
We received DoorDashes. We order DoorDash.
We order DoorDash, yes.
And when we were home and like during COVID and like all that stuff, like there were different cars coming in and out of our house all the time. Well, if you're a drug dealer, there's different cars coming in and out of your house all the time. So what's a good cover for that? Oh, it's DoorDash. Oh, it's DoorDash. So I guess what I've heard in a lot of other shows is people say, because there's people on these other programs that like have some history with some things that, they can speak to. And so they'll say, hey, order a DoorDash and then I'm going to come drop some product off at your house.
Right.
So it's, that house was a known, I know people aren't going to, give into this easily. Max says he's a data scientist, carefully researched it. Oh, that him being a Fed? Interesting. I like to hear
Bryan's a Fed?
Yeah, a lot of people think that, like that I told you how he's a criminologist at the university, and I just saw someone put this in the chat in another live that he stumbled upon something like doing his forensic stuff with the cops or with the house or something with this drug ring, went to somebody that maybe wasn't trustworthy, and then they just served him up as the scapegoat. But I'm going to go with you today. Tonight is Carlos's night.
No, let's go with all the
Kohberger, what all the theories are, he is agreeing to plead guilty, which is oh my God, whether to save his life or not. I just think if you're innocent, it's easy to say that if you're innocent, you will fight till the end. But look at those West Memphis 3 kids. Like they had to eventually do that Alfred plea in order to fight in prison to say they didn't do it. I don't know.
Well, yeah, if you bring in the West Memphis 3, the leader of the West Memphis 3 said after he was in prison for a while, he's like, I wish I wasn't that stupid kid that I was at the time, because I was so defiant.
Yes.
You know, and I was so mad at everything and everybody.
Yeah.
You know, and his
Like F
frontal
system,
lobe
and
didn't
yeah.
develop, you know. And he was like, he goes, I wish I was of sound mind and body like I am today, because I would have never let them run through me the way they ran through me.
Yeah, true.
You know, and Kohberger's 28.
Yeah.
29.
He's got a little bit more.
So you would think, yeah, that you know, and if he's as intelligent, you know, as people say he is, you know.
Yeah. So Max is saying that he's been saying for a year this wouldn't go to trial because of the Fed theory. But Max, I would love to see that interview. What show did you do that on? I'd love to see that. You could feel free to put it in the chat.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
give you a little plug there.
Yeah, this was.
So I have to say, I was prepared if it went to court and a jury found him guilty to say, and being able to see all the evidence. I'm upset about that. Like, I want to know what happened. This is such a bummer because we're all going to want to know what happened.
Well, I want to ask you about that. Again, we said at the top of the show that we just came on as soon as we heard the news. We don't know.
This is not scripted.
And we don't know any details about this. We just saw the headline. We started to listen to it. And I was like, let's just talk about it online. Right. Without all the details. There's a good chance for us to speculate. So it may be, right, because now we're allowed to speculate.
Yeah.
That part of the plea deal is he has to confess to what happened, how it happened.
I hope so.
And why it happened.
I hope so.
Right?
Yeah.
If they're just giving him this plea deal and none of that's along with it, I'm standing with protest signs with the Gonzaleses.
Don't you think the families would you want that as a parent?
Heck yeah.
Yeah, because I
want
it
the
would
choice.
Eat me alive.
I would want the choice. I'm glad it's out there, but I want the choice. Do I really want to know what happened to my child? And then whenever I'm prepared mentally and physically to get that information,
then you could do it.
I can go do it.
Yes.
Right.
I agree.
I would love for that to be somewhere for me to consume when I am mentally and physically ready to consume that information.
Yeah. And I'm not even thinking of, I think the parents, they already have the coroner, like the medical examiner's report. Like they know the injuries and all that stuff. So it's not about that. It's like,
why
that night, picturing what happened to your kid that night, like knowing, like, did they really go to sleep? What time did he really go up the stairs? What time did he really enter the house? Like, where did he get, like, knowing for sure exactly what happened, I think because to me, especially a mom, your mind is worse. It's probably worse than what reality is.
The what I think is important, and I would be less about the what. I would be more about the why. Why did that fixation or snubbing or whatever happened between those two or those five, whatever happened, why did it have to go to the point where it was premeditated? So much so that you were wearing a bodysuit and brought a weapon. This wasn't a spur of the moment thing. This was a premeditated attack. A weapon was brought to the scene, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't anything that was in the house that they are saying that caused these injuries. It was brought to the scene and left the scene. The person that was identified in the house, not a Bryan Kohberger or John Doe, was a person clad in black with a mask who was there to be stealth.
I cannot see him taking on Xana and Ethan at the same time. I cannot envision that. Can you?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because he didn't.
What do you mean he didn't?
Xana, from what I'm speculating happened, Xana ran up the steps, saw what was going on, ran back downstairs, was chased by the perpetrator, which ultimately caught up at the threshold
at her bedroom.
at the threshold of her bedroom door. Ethan was in bed, sleeping, passed out.
I don't think there's any way
I'm telling you my speculation. I know you like to just find that thing and interrupt me, and that upsets me, but I'm going to continue forward that he was sleeping and he was unalived quickly at that moment. So that's how I believe it happened. I'd love to hear how you believed it happened.
1 second. Max, I am chatting in the chat under my own username. So I'm asking you questions in there under Kimberly, but it's really us. So you can feel free to answer if you want. I forgot I wasn't using our typically unique channel. I just feel like it's probably a high likelihood that she was screaming bloody murder on the way to the room. So I think Ethan has a high probability that he probably was stirred from sleep at least
Could be
before she got there. So, and even if he's wide awake in bed, like what's going on, right? That's probably the most that would have happened.
That's going on,
right. That he got to her and took care of her before he was able. So then it was just one-on-one with Ethan. But wow.
No. And the ear witness testimony of that night was, wait, I'm here to help you. Not, I heard Xana or one of my roommates screaming bloody murder on the way back to her room. None of that was in the information. All it was, I'm chasing maybe somebody, and wait, I'm here to help.
Who said that?
The perpetrator.
To who?
Probably Xana.
So she wouldn't be afraid of him?
No, like, don't run away. I'm here to help. What you saw upstairs wasn't because of me. I'm here to help. That's her. Ear witness. Yeah, that's ear witness testimony in the PCA.
Yeah, that's why I don't know. I have to hear how and why.
Oh, me too.
Because I'm gonna talk about this with you and let you I'm what should I say? Giving you kudos because you did predict this like months ago. So I wanted to be able to talk to you, let you have this. I don't know if it's a moment or whatever, but I'm not ready to say, I got to still see more. I told you this whole time, I got to see the evidence because there's so much that doesn't line up.
I think that the community is going to probably say a lot of things that you just said at the beginning of this, and that I think Max even said, he's coerced. The feds are coercing him into this plea deal. You said the same thing. Did they make him do this? I mean, so will you, even if Bryan comes out and says, hey, look, like BTK did. BTK came out and he just said, I did this and I did this. And it was so abhorrent that people were just passing out literally in the courtroom, and he'd be like, oh, let me see, what else did I do? Oh yeah, I cut her head off. I mean, he was just so matter of fact. And until Bryan gets up there and does exactly what BTK said, the community may never come on board and think that he is guilty. No, so I'm willing to sit here and say that I think the wheels of justice did exactly what I thought the wheels of justice were going to do, whether he's guilty or innocent, or whether people think that he ultimately did it or didn't. I'm never going to try to predict that. I just predicted this is what the wheels of justice are going to do. And I've been saying this for a long time. The community may never come around to him being guilty, ever.
I don't think the Fed theory is that they coerced him into taking the plea deal. I think the Fed theory is Bryan has been working with them, because we knew right from day one, people said the FBI was already in town. Why? Why? There was a massive drug task force, bus going on all over the place in those counties. Why? Why? Because there was an issue. Um, there is so much evidence leading towards this other scenario, and uh, that's where people are thinking. So that
I just
because you kept saying, well, why would he say stay quiet and in jail this whole time? Maybe this was the time limit. Time limit's up.
I think there is so much, you said evidence, there is so much speculation
No,
around this. I've seen
no,
just
it's
because
evidence.
the FBI was in town prior to the murder, they're like, hey guys, gather the FBI around. We think there's going to be a quadruple murder at a frat house or a dorm or something, but we need to be in the area just in case. And I know it's going to happen in the next 4 or 5 days. So let's just make sure we're mobilized for that event to happen.
I don't know.
Whoa.
You
I mean,
know,
it may not even happen that night because there's speculation, even some evidence that he was doing a lot of those dry runs before the actual event happened, that he was coming to the house and then leaving and coming to the house, that the conditions just weren't right. And if that DoorDash driver would have just stayed a little bit longer, maybe the conditions weren't right that night. But the FBI mobilized 3 days before. So I got to make sure I go ahead and do this because FBI's in town, even though I did dry runs before that.
so you
it's
think
speculation there, it's
Yeah.
speculation here.
So you think a killer is going to go into a house after DoorDash just got delivered? So let's see. Kaylee had a car, Xana had a car, Ethan had a car. There were like at least 4 cars in that driveway. I think there were more in that driveway that night. DoorDash just got delivered, so they're awake, and I'm going to go in that house and attack.
You know what Ted Bundy did? He hid behind a sorority house with a log and waited for someone to walk in the door and went in and unalived a bunch of people. And you know what's weird about that? And what's weird about that, in the Dateline episode, one of the videos that he was watching was of Ted Bundy. That's a serious moment, which is speculation that I could get behind, right? Because it's impossible that a mass killer would walk into a house and kill some people because the urge is so great. But you did have something that you wanted to talk about before we knew about this plea deal about mass killers and home invasions.
Oh, what was it? Oh, someone made a comment that they always tie them up.
Yes.
Someone said that did you know about that, Max? Do you have that? Oh, Ted Bundy is 4 in the house. Oh, is that how many girls were in the sorority house with Ted Bundy? Yeah, someone made a comment on one of our shows that they studied all
mass
killings. Serial killers.
No, not serial killers.
No.
Mass killings. They use the word mass.
Oh, okay.
Home invasion killings.
Oh, and they were all tied up.
And everybody in the house was tied up before they were unalived.
Okay. That's different to me than a serial killer.
Yeah. That's a mass killing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Kohberger never had the opportunity to become a serial killer because he was found after the first one. Yeah. So I think he was a serial killer. I think he was a serial killer lying in wait.
Max said that was him.
Oh, was that Max?
Yeah, we read.
Yeah, well, we read that comment and we actually talked about it a little bit, right? That all the and the only thing that I could say that was maybe not true was a serial killer named Ted Bundy went into the sorority house and he didn't tie anybody up. He was just beating them with the log, so that was the only one I could think of. Everybody else, even like BTK, tied people up, had their way with them for a little while. It wasn't come in and start immediately unaliving people. It was, this is going to be an event. I'm going to go through and have an event here.
Yeah.
You know,
him and Golden State.
yeah.
But they
And there's a
built,
few more
but they
too.
built up to that, and I don't know. I need to hear all this. I need to hear. They better mandate that he say why. Oh my god.
I think there was one point many, many months ago, probably even a long time ago. I think when we just started doing this, you know, I liked the fact that we were on opposite sides and that even though we get testy with each other, I think we have respectfully heard each other's side.
Yeah.
You know, and on occasion be like, that's a good point. And you reluctantly have said, that's a good point, right?
Yeah,
you know,
I've always
you've
seen
done,
both
yeah.
sides. Yeah.
So I think what was good about us debating this case is there were serious questions, especially when Cy Ray came on board, where I was like,
oh yeah,
I have something to think about. And then Twiz came on.
Yeah.
And then we had a online discussion with Twiz, which I thought was really good. I mean, he was pushing my button a little bit. He was getting me pretty close, you know. I wasn't say I was all the way on this side, but I was inching towards the middle.
Yeah.
And then we had an offline conversation. I don't know if you remember this or not, with Twiz. And hopefully
Yes.
now that all this is over.
Do you know that this news of BK making a plea deal? It wasn't like 2 minutes and people are in the chat like, spill it, Twiz. What did he say? What did he tell you?
So I'm glad we're having this raw conversation because now I think we had a private conversation with Twiz where he didn't spill it, but he dripped a couple things. And I was like, that's worth taking in consideration. I would like to hear more.
Yeah.
And at that point, he said, I can't say more, but here, I'm giving you these little droplets.
Yeah.
So now I would love to hear the whole thing. Twiz, if you're out there, please report to Typically Unique Podcast.
He's live right now.
Okay. Twiz calling all Twiz if you're out there.
We're sending out the Batman signal.
Bat signal. The Twiz signal. But no, we had an offline conversation. I thought that was pretty interesting. I'd like to hear more.
Oh, Twiz was in there. Hey, Twiz. I hope you're listening. He said
we were just calling you.
Oh my gosh.
That's great. So he's here. He's here.
Well, I don't know if he's still here, but he popped in a little bit ago. I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
Okay. So so I would be interested to hear what the rest of that is.
Yeah.
And how he feels about the information that he got.
Oh.
If it's exculpatory, like he really made me feel it was going to be,
right?
If it's that exculpatory, what in the darn nation
happened
is the defense doing?
Yeah.
Letting this person rot in jail for the rest of his life if they have exculpatory evidence to present at trial. I'm willing to roll that dice if one thing and one juror believes that one thing, I'm not in jail. Or, you know, they may retry me, so maybe I would have to stay in jail. But after a couple retrials, at some point, they just got to let me go.
Yeah.
Because if you got one solid exculpatory piece of evidence.
The only thing I can think, remember what also Cy Ray said was that if he got, because they weren't getting all the evidence, right? And Cy Ray kept saying, I know you can get it, right? They kept saying, the prosecution kept saying, we can't get it. Cy Ray said, I know you can. So did he get it? And he said, if I find out that this isn't exculpatory, I reserve the right to change my mind.
But would he go out and say in public, hey guys, remember when I said that in court or whatever? I'm here to announce today that I've changed my mind.
No.
Okay, because then Bryan Kohberger would not get a fair trial.
Right.
So he was told to zip it.
No, but do you know what Cy Ray will do? He'll speak. We're going to get all the details that he knows after this.
And
so when he's free and clear to speak.
But when I asked you 3 weeks ago, I was like, where is Cy Ray?
Yeah, he can't now until this is all over.
But I asked you 3 weeks ago, I'm like, where is Cy Ray? You know, well, he can't talk about the case. Well, he was doing a lot of talking 6 weeks ago. But over the past 4 weeks, where is Cy Ray?
In the court docs, because
Yeah.
he made the
He made that
statement.
big
Yeah, he
thing.
made huge accusations
Accusations.
against the prosecution.
Yep.
So that's still huge. I don't know. I think there's more. I still think there's more to this story, but I don't know. I guess it could just be the simple. We always say Occam's razor, right?
Occam's
the
razor.
simplest thing is true,
Yep.
but I don't know.
No, I think what gave this case a lot of legs is probably who was unalived, right? How it was done, the controversy about, why did it take so long to call 911, and a lot of things were suspect. And then once that Grubhub video came out and you saw those girls, right? Because it was first a Grubhub, and you saw those girls just being Grub Truck, yeah, just being carefree, just going about a normal college person's life, and then just all of these potential wolves surrounding them. It drew me in, because you were like, I remember at the very beginning, it's the guy with the hood. You ain't gonna watching him. You are not gonna convince me otherwise. I've blown this up. I've slowed it down. I've done this.
Well, so remember at the beginning, we didn't even know he walked in with them.
You didn't have that part of it.
No,
yeah,
we didn't have that part. So all we had was them. They had ordered their food and were. And
he was the creeper dude.
They were at
in
the back
background.
end, and he was just standing there watching them. And you're like, "Who is that?" Then they released more, so that we kind of back. They were, we were like, "Okay,"
because the community was going to hang him from hang him by his testicles, for the love of God. That poor guy. You talk about being afraid to come from Pennsylvania to Idaho. The dude was in Idaho, and he was like, "I can't get out. Someone's gonna kill me."
Yeah.
I mean, that's the energy that was out there on this guy. The police had to release that other stuff. They were releasing stuff so people could live, so other people could live.
Yeah. Or get backed off.
Or get back to some type of normalcy. They were like, "Look, he has we checked on him. He has nothing to do with the case. Leave him alone." I mean, they were literally putting out information that they didn't want to, so people could live.
I still think this is weird, and I don't know how much longer you want to stay on, but
we can stop when you want. I'm done with all my gloating.
I still think it's weird that they had a hearing today in Pennsylvania for defendants to go out to testify, and then that was the first thing this morning, and then this news just broke. Maybe, do you know what? Miss Potts was there, and she said that there was a question, and nobody from the defense was there to answer it. So they had no representative there today. And I'm like, that just dawned on me. So they already knew, maybe. Oh,
so they probably weren't fighting hard for or against
my
whatever.
God, you guys. That just hit me.
Wow. I wonder if anybody else has made that connection.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. I'm not in any other chats right now, but I will be later. But yeah. When did this happen this morning? It's Monday. Monday morning. Did something happen? Like, when was the last hearing? It's been weeks.
That's Tuesday.
It's been a lot. It's been a while. I can't remember.
So, okay. Wow. So let's wrap this up, right? So I think you were shocked by the news.
I'm still in shock.
Yeah. And I was doing a little twirl and telling my daughter, I think I won a prize.
I'm so mad.
Because I predicted.
I'm so mad.
Not that I predicted that, hey, we'll go to trial and he'll be found guilty. I literally predicted this. I'm like, Kim, this ain't going to trial. I said, the closer it gets, he's going to take a plea deal. And when he got denied the extension, I even doubled down and said, oh, we're about to get a plea deal. I mean, that's how sure I was about my position, just on everything that I've seen, based on all the evidence. And I've seen the community side and I've seen the prosecution side. Out of all that evidence, me, just this layman guy, potential juror, taking in all this information, this is 100% where I landed. And I was this way for a long time. You, on the other hand, were shocked. And part of me understands why, because I'll say this for you in your defense. I think the communities come up with better alternative suspects
They have
than the
than
defense.
the defense did.
And you were so upset by the defense's use of an alternative
I was
suspect.
like, what is
I know.
this?
And even
it was like a give up. It felt like a give up.
it even made me double down on what I was thinking. Like,
Yeah.
he's going to be found guilty, but this ain't going to trial because he knows it and he doesn't want to die. He doesn't want to die.
And the other thing is like even that drug theory that I have, and there's a creator that has, like I said, like, wow, they've got evidence, they've got court dates, that's all been shared with the defense. That's all been shared. So if they're not using that, then they must have vetted things out, or and I think this is what Max is talking about, or some other people, is that there is something to it. It's a way bigger thing. Something way bigger is going on behind the scenes, and we will either never find out or maybe we'll find out later.
But in the end of the day, if it's that conspiracy, Bryan is the patsy, and you knew it all along, dude. You're the patsy.
Either patsy or somehow, I don't know. Like, I there's going to be some people that think he's not really going to prison. We're going to need like live video feed of him actually in prison 24/7 to verify he's really there.
Well, here's the issue. Hopefully he goes to prison immediately and in 23-hour lockdown. And when he walks the yard
from everybody
and when
else.
he walks the yard, it's for an hour by himself, maybe in a small cage. Because like Jeffrey Dahmer, somebody in prison is not going to like the crimes that he committed. And like Dahmer, he is going to get beat to death before he ever sees, a birthday.
And as angry as a parent would be, you might want to make sure that happens. There's ways. So he's gonna be protected.
Highly doubt that if he is anywhere near general population that he survives.
Wow.
In prison. He needs to be locked down 23 hours a day. And when he goes to the yard, it's an hour in a small 10x10 outdoor cage.
He needs to write a book. I need to know what happened. I hope that's part of the deal.
All right. Anything else from the chat or anything? Can we answer anything?
Jason said, great job. Carlos predicted it. Yes, he did. And Max, we're going to look up that interview. We'll watch it. I want to see things first before we use it. But thank you for sharing that with us. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, I'm still, Carlos is like, we got to jump on. We got to jump on live. We got to jump on live because we've been invested in this
for a long time,
since the very beginning.
Well, and this gives us a chance for you to kind of hear everything that's going on now. While it's fresh. We'll probably come back in a couple days with a more structured podcast and have a nice.
After I've digested, and I'm literally in shock. Like, I think I'm shaking. I can't. I have not had a chance to think.
Yeah.
This has been raw, real emotion, real talk. We call these real talk.
Yep. Because we were just going to do this amongst ourselves, just what we're doing right now.
Yeah, we would have.
So, and she would have cried. I would have got yelled at, and we did a little bit of that on here, but that's usually.
You guys got to witness. We went right
to the edge,
line
and then we came back.
Yeah, I get emotional. I get, passionate.
No, it's
and,
good.
You know,
It's good to see that.
it's how we roll
That's
around
how
here.
we do it. So thank you for jumping on. For those who did, for those who may watch this after the fact,
Yes.
put in the comments some of your thoughts. I mean, we're going to find out more information as we go. So
Yeah.
the best place for us to consume information is things that maybe you've seen and heard right here in our chat. So we'd love to, read those, and we'll respond to them because it's on our channel.
Yeah.
And if you haven't yet, please subscribe and like. I mean, we're real close to 1,000 subscribers, so that gives us the opportunity to do a lot more things on this platform. So we're looking forward to that. And
smash that like button and subscribe if you can. And we will see you back here.
Pleadio. Yeah, we'll see you. We'll see you next time.
See you back here next time. Bye.
Pleadio. Until you turn this off, I'm gonna just keep saying pleadio. Pleadio.